Welcome, everyone. Hello and happy Friday. Thank you for joining us today for our Summer Friday series in partnership with the Childcare Success Company. You may notice today that your audio and video is turned off. This is just to ensure that everyone has the best viewing experience. But with that said, we'd love to hear from you. Um, Let us know in the chat where you're joining from. It's always fun to see where everyone is tuning in from. Personally, I'm in Phoenix. I'm joined here with Teddy Hook. He's in Dallas, and Jody is in Utah. As you have any questions that pop up today, please drop them in the chat, or you can pop them in the Q&A box as well. We'll get to those at the end, and if there's something that Teddy or Jody shares today that is really resonating with what you're experiencing at your business, definitely hit that react button at the bottom of your screen and hit us with the thumbs up and let us know. And today we'll really be focusing on enrollment and retention challenges. You will receive a follow-up email on Monday morning with your certificate of attendance, as well as a copy of today's recording. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Teddy and Jody to introduce themselves and kick off today's discussion.
Well, Teddy Hook here, Vice President of Product at LineLeader. So my background has really always been on the software side, and I've been exposed to the early education industry really heavily over the last 5 or 6 years. Absolutely love the industry. It's been a pleasure to be a part of it. But my background definitely tends to be a little bit more on the software side and working with our customers on tools that can help with enrollment and retention. But very, very glad to be joined here with Jody today.
Thanks, Teddy. So I'm Jody Zabriskie, and I currently own 6 childcare centers in Utah. I have some smaller locations and some bigger locations. We serve around 750 children. And then I also coach for a childcare success company. I've been a coach there for about 3 years. I love to be able to just pour into people and give them what they need, mentor people so that they know and you don't have to make the mistakes that I made. So I'm excited to be here with Teddy and to be able to discuss some of these hurdles that we face as the industry and see what we can do to help support this industry. So to kick that off, Teddy, I'd love to talk a little bit about declining lead volume and conversion rates. In the childcare centers across the US, we're seeing a huge decline in new leads coming in. We have the smaller, the mid-size operators. We're experiencing a lot of drop in having driving people in, and it's paired with the low conversion rates from the inquiry to the registry. It's really a pandemic that we're facing, where we're not getting those leads that are coming into this facility or into this industry. What do you think about that, Teddy? And what experience do you have with that?
Yeah, it's one of those core challenges, right? How do we view our enrollment, and how do we view how many leads are out there and available to register at our centers? And it does appear to be going down. I always like to kind of break up the world of my experience in childcare as like pre-COVID, COVID, and then post-COVID as almost three individual time periods. And what we see in our data is our industry was like really resilient in that COVID time period, and even the very post-COVID time period, where we stayed kind of strong in terms of what we saw from registrations. But for us, starting really after 2022 and the 3 years following, there's been a bit of a decline in lead volumes. We're just seeing that across our aggregate data set. Fewer leads are reaching out to look for care, and it's not drastic. I wouldn't say it's dry, but it has been a steady decline. So the question I think that turns to a lot is maybe what are some of our strategies for growth, or how are we spending our marketing dollars, or are leads getting more expensive? All of these are important questions because I do think a lot of operators are seeing fewer interested families. And I don't know, Jody, if your center's kind of experienced that as well over the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's, we have and my clients have as well. So we're seeing that an increased or people aren't having children like they used to. I mean,
Yeah.
there's many studies showing that our our population is not growing because people just are not having kids like they used to. And so, that's driving it. I think people are finding different options due to costs, due to the economy, due to inflation. I think there's just so many contributing factors. And that's why it's just so important to make sure that your processes and your systems are so in point so that when you get that one person, you're driving them in and you're capturing them.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a lot of people reach out all the time and say, "Hey, what is driving that decline?" And I think you're spot on. Is it just simply there's fewer children? It's very possible. Is it that we're seeing maybe costs or work from home scenarios driving, parents and families to just stay at home with care and choose not to show up. We hear a lot about public pre-K. I think that's a little bit different. I don't know if that's necessarily attacking our ECE pool of children, but that's out there as well. And I think all of these probably in some form or fashion are contributing. But I think the most important point there you made, Jody, is like, okay, well, if we know they're going down a little bit, and if they're not, if you're one of those centers where you're overwhelmed with lead flow, that's great. Hold on to that secret. But for those that are seeing it a little bit dropped, what are we doing about it? How do we combat this? And it is being thoughtful about capturing those leads and actioning them. And I know that's like okay, so the guy that works at LineLeader is saying that, but there are many different systems and ways you can do it today. It absolutely doesn't have to come from a tool like LineLeader, but you have to be following up quickly with families. Like we know the biggest population of families today are millennials and even starting to be Gen Z. You got to get to them quick. You have to build this trust with them, and whether that's coming from a phone call that's being made, a text messages you're sending back out to them. I know that seems crazy, but texts are incredibly reliable ways to communicate with families. You almost don't trust phone calls you get from numbers anymore. Spam is so out of control. But
Yep.
those quick follow-ups are crucial because it allows you to kind of create a brand experience immediately, and get in touch with that family immediately, which is going to make a huge difference maker. So that's a point that we kind of drive home consistently is you got to get out to those leads quickly. And Jody, I mean, how do you guys handle that at some of your centers today?
Well, I'll tell you how I handle it, but I also 100% agree with you, Teddy. It's the instant gratification. We're in the time where this younger generation, they were born with the cell phones and the screen right in front of their face. And so that's conditioned their brain to get instant gratification. So if you're not hitting them and hitting them right away with the right information and using the right tools in a CRM program, then you're not getting them where they need to be quickly. And I love the comment where someone just posted in the comments saying, yeah, we are seeing the school districts. We are seeing them. They're saying that they have great reputations. They have the free services. People are turning to that. So it's really important to not only set yourself apart, but why is it better for the private sector? And I think we're really having to advertise ourselves, and the marketing is so crucial because you've got to compete for free. You've got to compete so that you know that you can take these children and make them just as good or better than a school district. And how do you compete against free? Really is what it comes down to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really important point. And I think this isn't something that I think clicks for most business owners early on in really any industry, but in early education as well, because you're so focused on caring for the children. But you are your own brand, and you do really need to kind of create that brand and push it out everywhere in your community, right? Whether that's through local advertising, whether that's through email and digital advertising. You want your brand to be a part of that community, and you can sell you can truly sell what sets you apart from free educators. And I think collectively as an industry, we're going to continue to do that as well. That's not necessarily a challenge you're taking on alone, right? The 150,000 operators in the ECE space here in the US are kind of collectively going to provide information back to families about what makes you all so special in what you do and how you combat against maybe free education that isn't providing those same benefits. But 100% make sure you're marketing that. Think about what sets you apart from those programs, and that is content that you need to be delivering to interested families right away. If they are reaching out to you, they at least have some interest against a free service, right? So make sure in the drips, in the touch points you're getting back to families, you are very quickly starting to establish who you are as a brand and what sets you apart from those competitors in your area.
Absolutely. It's what can you do to not only set yourself apart, but it's also how can you solve the problem? How can you solve that problem when someone is in a position where they need the problem solved? They may have a bad day or have a bad situation happen. If you can be right there in front of them and can keep that constant contact with them, you're going to solve that problem for them.
Yeah, and that's great too. I know we're talking a lot about quickly getting out to families, but what about actually keeping them, keeping that contact information in your pipeline, in your system, in your overall view? You're absolutely right. Maybe we didn't get a chance to win that family over today because they are interested in free education, but all of a sudden, they had a really bad experience, or they went through, a couple months in that program and didn't see the benefits. Hey, we're sitting right here waiting for you to come back to a program you maybe had left, or come here for the first time to experience the value you're getting for the cost of our services. So I think that's such an important point too. Even if you don't have the opportunity to enroll a family immediately, you need to keep holding on to that family in some form or fashion, especially if you know they're going to a service like a free education, because they might find very quickly that that's not the service they need for their children and their family.
Absolutely. 100% agree with that.
Um, well, Jody, I know we can sit here a lot and talk to folks about the importance of enrollment, and we are seeing leads down a little bit, right? So we would encourage everybody to think about their practices for getting back to interested families, because it's so important to do that and keep them in the pipeline. But we talked a lot about this morning between each other, Jody, and if if it's super important to capture interested families, I mean, how much more important, and I want to be careful about even saying more important, but how equally important is it to retain the families you have at the center today?
Yeah, I think it's that story of when, when it's nice and thriving, focusing just on the people coming in is where we tend to see people put most of their focus is the people coming in, but they're not really watching the back door of people going out. And that's equally as important and more important, honestly, because the cost of turnover is so substantial. So to look at that, it's really important to know your numbers and make sure that you're keeping track of those metrics to make sure that you're watching those people walking out the back door and what can you do to retain them. So the follow-up is really important, but also making sure that you're looking at that. We actually have staggering, it is like 80% of childcare centers are reporting that their occupancy is below that 70 percentile.
Yeah.
You really, to be a healthy company, have to be at 85% or higher. And that's the challenge, is if you're not retaining them, when we have economic statuses that go down, then where is it and how do you keep them there? It's crucial to make sure that you're keeping them there. So I don't know exactly what you were saying or what you were wanting me to throw out there, but that's really what it is. There's this round circle that happens, and if you're not retaining and you're just letting people walk out the door, and you're just worried about the ones that are coming in the door, it's not going to work. You always have a lopside. And that's why it's important to make sure that you're staying with them.
Yeah. And we're asking a lot of the operators out there. It's not easy. You kind of got to do both, right? You have to be focused on enrollment, but you also have to be focused, of course, on retention. And Jody, across your centers, do you have any sort of like shifting strategy there where, hey, if you notice maybe retention's becoming more of a problem at one of your centers, you're going to maybe spend some additional resources focusing on that, and maybe you'll take kind of the gas pedal off enrollment, and then hey, if we know retention is stabilizing, we're going to maybe go spend more effort on enrollment? Or are you always saying, hey, no, we need to focus on both, like find ways we can commit to kind of both strategies? Does that kind of ebb and flow, or how do you maybe view that across the different centers you have today?
Yeah, when you take your car and you're driving down the freeway, if you take your gas pedal and you just come up and you go down and you come up and go down, what typically happens is you're getting sick, right?
Yeah.
Same thing. If you don't have a good status on both of those, then you're really failing because they're both equally important. So that's why it's important to keep track of those metrics, making sure that you're keeping track of the numbers every single week, every single month, making sure that you have a good process. And I'm a huge believer in making sure that you have a software to show it, to be able to show that, and you can see the history so that you can project the future, or that you can help project the future in decision making. And so that's where it's like, well, it gives you the story. It gives you that so that you can forecast the story, and you can go back and you can figure out what the problem is. From your inquiry down to your tours, there's a story there. If those are good, then you move down to the next story and you say, okay, now from my tour to being registered, what does that look like? What's the conversion rate? Making sure that you're looking at that and you have a really good sense of what that looks like. And then how long am I keeping people? Am I retaining them? What is your turnover? Is it a 3 year? Is it a 5 year? Knowing those numbers are really going to keep you to the point where you're healthy. And then looking at, okay, now if I have fully enrolled, that's great, but I continually am going to market. I'm going to continually stay in front of those potential people because, as you know, things change. COVID hit, right? What happens when COVID hit? Did you lose all that funding because people were walking out the door and staying home? Or did you have that list ready for you to where you can market to additional people to get people in the door? You're always going to have crises happen. Doesn't matter what it is, you're going to have something happen all the time. It's the way it goes. So just making sure that you're keeping track of those is going to put you in place or at the front lines when something happens. You can be there to help and support those families. It's just as important and equally important to be a business owner. If you're going to do it, be that business owner that knows the story so that you can be able to be there long term rather than having the continually or jumping out. There's a lot of childcare centers right now that are really struggling and that are leaving the field because they don't know, they didn't have their metrics. They didn't have the systems and processes that are needed to make sure that you're able to withstand some of the impacts that we're having, inflation, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true and great and helpful context. And yeah, it's like you kind of got to do both, right? So where are the best strategies and tools we can establish to do both, to focus on enrollment and on retention? You definitely have to do both of those things, and you can't kind of take your foot off the gas there. And what's interesting, I'm kind of keeping along with some of the comments too, and we're seeing them, y'all. So keep them coming in, but. Strategy is important here. And one of the things we see a lot in our data too is like early and often is a good way to put it. That's what we're saying in the enrollment process, right? When interested families reach out, being able to get to them quickly gives you a 9 times advantage in engagement. But it's also on the retention side too. Like when you enroll a family, the first 90 days are critical. That's a critical period to create a relationship with that family, make them comfortable with your services. That's going to go a really, really long way. We like to look at things in our systems around like engagement metrics. because we feel like that's a really powerful way to use technology to see how that first 90 days is going. Are our teachers communicating a lot of different engagement back to the families about their child, about their family members, and are the families being reciprocal? Are they actually going and engaging with that content as well? If we have a nice harmonization between these kind of two-way street of engagement, and it doesn't have to be a family blowing up your teachers with comments and calls all day. We know that can be distracting, right? But just engagement in terms of, hey, here's what's happening at the center throughout the day. And then we can see reciprocal engagement of that content back. If you have good levels of that through the first 90 days, you're establishing such a great connection with the family that you're going to be in really good shape to retain past that. But you do want to have some ways to measure this. And I know, Jody, you were spot on here too. Like, are we losing a lot of families after the first 90 days? Is it after a year? Is it after 3 years? That's going to be super, super important data point for you to know as well, because it's going to change your retention strategy a little bit there. But absolutely, early and often, right? These moments of truth, we call them, when you're listing out a life cycle. And we encourage our customers to do this. Like, sit down with your team and think about every touch point an interested family goes through, from the moment they learn about your brand to the first phone call they make, to the time they come in and tour, to when they actually show up for the first day, maybe the first review parent teacher conference, to the day they withdraw. Map them all out, and you find these moments of truth where the family is saying, did I just make a good decision? Like the tour, that's a moment of truth. Wow, do I want to be here? First day dropping off your child, that's a moment of truth, right? Did I make the right decision? So if you can figure out these moments of truth, those are the places you want to make sure you have a good process in place around, that's going to help both with that enrollment and retention.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with that, Teddy, is when there's the connection and this, it's crucial to keep doing that family engagement, making sure that your team is all fully in as well. So, making sure your team understands these strategies and what's important is just equally important than just having an admin be part of that. So having your team be a part of the tour, having your team be a part of the engagement piece, making sure that they're sending those daily documentation, making sure that they're sending pictures, making sure that the parent feels secure with the admin, but also feels secure with the full team. If there's something that happens with the family, then that's even more important to make sure that you're hitting those right away and getting those problems solved so that you can retain them, building that trust. That building trust with our families is the most important thing, because if something goes wrong and they have trust in you, then they're going to stay with you, and then they're going to refer you to more people, and then it's important to capture that information. And who
Yeah.
are they bringing in? If you have the wrong clientele bringing in the wrong people, then you're not driving. So what does that look like? Are you capturing the people that you want in your facility? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's such an important point, and maybe it's a nice to have discussion too. But like, who is the ideal uh, family profile you want at your center, and do you sometimes even have to make a tough decision if somebody's not fitting that profile correctly? But I'm kind of again glancing at the comments, and I think Shelby had listed something that's fascinating. I didn't actually hear this or think of this before, but we talk about how important retention is, and Shelby saying, hey, we're getting asked that at the tour. What's your retention rate? And Jody, you talked a lot about kind of trust building too. I mean, imagine how impactful that is to actually even just be able to answer that question. Like, how many times do directors probably say, I don't even know, maybe I don't even know, right? And that's probably concerning. So what if you're actually able to say, hey, this is our retention rate and this is why? Because these are the families we want to be here, and these are the families we try to invest in. And sometimes families maybe don't work out, and maybe that's because they're actually not the right profile of family that we are built here to care for. So that's kind of a fascinating data point that, if our families are asking that question more, we should be prepared to talk about it, right? 100%.
Absolutely. And retaining your families and retaining your staff are equally as important, because if you retain the staff, then they're building that continuity for your families. But if
Yeah.
you're not retaining the families, it's really hard to retain the children because there's so much turnover in children in it, and it becomes extremely difficult for team, because when there's a lot of change in children's lives, people know on this call, it becomes more disruptive. And children become more disruptive because they have challenging behaviors, because there's so much change. That's why there's structure. So it's equally as important to retain those families so that you can retain your team. It's equally as important to retain your team so you can retain families. So again, it's not like, the lopsided teeter-totter. You've got to be centered, and you got to be teetering in the middle and make sure that you're really focusing on that. And as a business leader, it's important to look at that and look at that picture and see, where is the problem? Where do you need to focus? But also don't take off the gas pedal for the other side as well. Make sure that you don't take your eye off on, the whole entire thing. Put some a little bit of focus. But if you put too much focus on that little button, the whole plane can go down.
Yeah. Yeah, and we see that so often, and it feels like enrollment is always the first place you take your eye away from. And it's understandable, right? Like, yes, I need to focus a lot on staff. Yes, I need to focus a lot on retention. These leads are coming in. I don't have time. Yes, I'll call them back, in a few days. Oh, you know what? We're at 85% occupancy right now. We're in a great place. Like, we don't need to be focusing on this. Those are the situations that come back to haunt you a little bit, for sure. And yeah, it's not easy, right? It's definitely not easy, but you pointed out very well. You need to be thinking about all three of those pieces. And yeah, I'll go back to kind of, hey, if you're like, this is a little bit overwhelming, it's such a helpful exercise to just sit down and think about, okay, what are we doing in enrollment right now? What are we doing in our retention? And that could just be, do we even understand it? Do we even know what it is, right? And then, of course, you touched a little bit on the staffing piece, which is so intertwined to all of the above. It's almost the layer that sits on top that impacts both of those as well. And I'm sure we could spend several sessions talking about those strategies. You much better than I could, Jody.
Well, I love it that we've had this discussion, because really that's what it is having something, strong system set in place to make sure that, it can be extremely tiring, especially as a business owner and someone at the leader. I started 25 years ago, but I started with a small location, and I remember doing everything myself. And if there's anything that I could say that I wish I would have known back then that I possibly know today, is keeping track of where it is on all ends is going to get you farther, and making sure that you're concentrating on building that team to build the retention, to make sure that the systems are properly placed, and having good, strong systems in place, having a good, strong system to where you're keeping track of the people that are driving in. Um, Unfortunately, a spreadsheet just doesn't work. You got to have something strong to where you can be there. You can present that to people quickly. If you have a spreadsheet, you're not presenting to people quickly. And we're in the generation that they want things quick. So how do we do that?
Yeah.
Actually, Jody, that point tees me up to a question that we did get in the chat. We are coming up on time, so I want to make sure we have some time to answer these questions. This actually came up when you were speaking as well, Jody, and someone asked, do you have any templates you use to keep all of these current and toward families engaged? What does a good process look like for that?
Yeah, I mean, I use a client management system where it's driving them in. It's on, digital form, to where there's some automation involved with the touch points of a human. So I'm a full believer in making sure that you do have a system that's set in place to where you can hit people. I mean, people don't answer the phone, like Teddy said. They don't answer the phone. They want something through text message, they want something through the systems that are electronically. And then the human touch is what you bring into it.
Right. It's not just responding quick, it's responding often and frequent to make sure that you're staying top of mind.
And the way they want to be responded to, right? If you keep calling them on the phone and they don't want to talk to anyone, you're never going to hit them.
Right. Maybe that's a sign. Awesome. All right, we do have one last question. So it's a little bit long, so bear with me. So Sarah says that we are licensed for 142, but only have 54 currently enrolled. We've blanketed flyers across our area, advertise where we can afford to. We offer very decent referral discounts, credits, quick enrollment turnaround times, and we are still really struggling on finding children to enroll. I stay in contact with families who fill out our waitlist forms, but we just are not getting interested families like we used to. Any ideas for the future?
Yeah, Sarah, I'd say hang tight and make sure that you go back and look at the story that's there. Look at the story and look and see what could be a possible trigger that you need to look at as far as is there, when we talk about the history and the story that we just talked about, the inquiry, look at the story between all of those different I guess like points. So your inquiry to your tour, are they showing up? Are they taking a tour? And then look at your history from the tour to actually registered. So if you're having a problem with the inquiry to the phone call, does that mean that, or excuse me, the inquiry to the tour, you've got to look and see is the people that are answering the phone call the best people to be answering the phone call? Or does it happen before that with your marketing? Is your marketing probably not appropriate and you're not driving in people appropriately? So you've got to really look at the story and figure out where the problem is. And if you're not keeping track of your numbers, I say start keeping track of your numbers so that you can have data there so that you can see them side by side and you can see if you're getting more clientele or if you're getting more people and you're driving more people during certain times of the year or with certain marketing strategies and then break it down and say, okay, from the tour to the registered, are they getting a really strong tour so that they are registering? Well, then you can go back and you can look at that story and you can try to figure out and dissect it to try to figure out what you need to do to beef up your tour or possibly have someone that possibly shouldn't be touring. Possibly they just don't have the skills to be a salesperson. So you really do have to drive into those and look at those metrics.
Yeah, great advice. There's a lot of different variables and scenarios throughout the enrollment process. So good to dig into the data and see what might be going wrong. All right, well, that brings us to time today. So thank you so much, Jody and Teddy, for your time. If you have any additional questions, we will be sending out a follow-up email to your inbox Monday morning. So if you have questions that we didn't get to today, please feel free to respond and we'll get back to you. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you so much.